I was driving home late one Friday night after visiting an old friend out in the countryside. The air was thick with fog, and the road was eerily quiet. The only sounds were the occasional hum of my tires on the asphalt and the distant chirp of crickets. The winding path was a two-lane highway, barely lit by sporadic street lamps. It was the kind of night where every shadow seemed to stretch longer than it should. My car, a weathered sedan that had seen better days, hummed steadily under me as I navigated the curves of the road. My eyes were getting heavy, and I found myself thinking about the warmth of my bed, the comfort of my own home. That was when I first noticed it. In my rearview mirror, a pair of headlights flickered into view, growing larger with each passing second. I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe it was just another late-night driver, like me. But the headlights didn't seem to be passing by like they should have. Instead, they were right on my tail, staying a constant distance behind. I pressed my foot a little harder on the gas, thinking I was just imagining things. But the headlights followed suit, closing in on me. It was then that I realized this wasn't just coincidence. Whoever was behind me was trying to stay close. My pulse quickened. I glanced nervously at the road ahead. There weren't any turnoffs for miles, just dense trees and a few scattered farms. I couldn't lose them here. I started speeding up, my fingers gripping the steering wheel tighter as I felt the presence of the other car closing in, inch by inch. Suddenly, the headlights behind me blinked off, and I thought I was free. I let out a shaky breath, thinking the other driver had finally given up. But then, in the corner of my eye, I saw it. The shadow of a car, speeding up beside me on the narrow road, almost touching my door. I whipped my head to the right and caught sight of a dark, rusted Dodge Dart, its headlights glaring, casting a harsh beam of light through my window. I could see the shape of a person behind the wheel, their face obscured by the shadows, but their posture rigid, as if they were focused entirely on me. I could hear the sound of their engine revving, as if daring me to speed up or pull over. I panicked, my heart pounding in my chest. I pressed my foot down harder on the accelerator, desperately trying to put some distance between myself and the Dart. The sound of its engine roared louder in my ears as it matched my speed. It was like I was in a nightmare, unable to escape. My palms were sweaty, and my breathing came in shallow gasps. My mind raced. Who was this person? Why were they following me? I didn't know the answers, but I knew I had to get away. For the next few miles, it was a terrifying game of cat and mouse. Every time I thought I had gained a little ground, the Dart would speed up and close the gap. It was like they were waiting for me to make a mistake, to show weakness. I glanced in the mirror again, seeing the Dart tailing me relentlessly, its headlights still bright, a constant reminder that I was not alone. I rounded a bend in the road, and for a moment I saw an opening, a dirt road leading off to the left. It was risky, but I had no other choice. Without thinking twice, I yanked the wheel to the left and barreled down the dirt road, hoping to shake them off. The car behind me followed, its engine roaring louder as it powered down the unpaved path. The dust swirled around me, clouding my vision, but I pushed through it, my foot still pressed to the pedal. The Dodge Dart was closing in though, and I could feel the heat of their headlights searing into my rearview mirror. I looked ahead, hoping for some kind of miracle. Just when I thought I couldn't outrun them anymore, the dirt road began to widen, leading into a small clearing. There was an old farmhouse up ahead, its lights flickering in the distance. My hope flared as I thought of reaching the house and possibly finding help. But before I could make my move, something horrifying happened. The Dart swerved suddenly, cutting off my path. In one fluid motion, the car came to a halt right in front of me. My stomach dropped, and I slammed on the brakes, the tires screeching against the dirt. I barely avoided a collision, but now I was trapped. I sat frozen, my mind racing. The Dart's engine still hummed ominously, and I could see the figure inside, their face now visible. It was a man, his eyes wide and unblinking. His face was weathered, like he hadn't seen the light of day in years. His grin, if you could even call it that, was twisted, cruel, and far too wide. He didn't say anything, just stared at me, waiting for me to make a move. For a long moment we were locked in a silent standoff. My hands trembled on the wheel, but I knew I couldn't back down. I had to do something, anything to escape this nightmare. Then it came to me. The farmhouse. There had to be someone there. Someone who could help. I just had to get to it. I looked at the narrow space between the Dart and the trees on the other side. It was tight, but it was my only chance. I threw my car into reverse and slammed the gas, praying I could make it. The Dart's headlights flickered, but the man didn't move, almost like he was savoring the moment. I managed to maneuver my car just enough to slip past him, the rear of my car scraping against the dirt as I swerved away. My heart was in my throat as I pulled back onto the road, desperately trying to outrun him once again. This time, I didn't look back. I drove as fast as I could, my eyes fixed on the farmhouse. As I approached, I saw lights flickering in the windows. Someone was definitely there. I swerved into the driveway and screeched to a halt in front of the house, my hands shaking so much I could barely turn the key to shut off the engine. I bolted out of the car, running to the front door. I pounded on it, breathless, my heart still hammering in my chest. A man in his late 40s opened the door, looking at me with confusion, but when he saw the panic in my eyes, he understood. "Are you all right?" he asked, ushering me inside before I could answer. I could hear the Dodge Dart revving in the distance. The man slammed the door shut, locking it. I leaned against the wall, trying to calm my racing thoughts. I was safe, for now. The man, seeing my fear, called the local authorities immediately. I don't know how much time passed before they arrived, but by the time they did, the Dart was gone. They searched the area for hours, but there was no sign of the man or his car. No trace. It was as if he had disappeared into thin air. I never found out who that person was, or why they chased me that night. The police couldn't find any records of the car, and the farmhouse owner said he had never seen anyone like that before. But to this day, whenever I drive late at night, I always check my rearview mirror just to be sure. It's a habit now, a reflex. And I'll never forget the feeling of those headlights on my back. Never. It ended well that night, but I know deep down that sometimes things don't end well.